It's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the program. Thank you so much for being with us. You have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We are so thrilled that you are with us today. And you have found us here on Johnny Cash Friday, and you know what that means. Johnny Cash Friday is a day where we try to listen to as much Johnny Cash music as we can. There it is. Yes. We try to listen to as much Johnny Cash music as we can, while at the same time peppering in the news and events of the day or the week, maybe even things we've missed. Let me tell you something. I was browsing the library of parodies that we have, and one we haven't played in a long time is a Johnny Cash parody set to Walk the Line, and instead of Walk the Line, it's Toe the Line, and we specifically, in this parody, make a point about big government and that sort of thing, and, you know, the lyrics are pretty generic, but making the point that towing the line is what the folks down in Little Rock call progress. Towing the line is what the folks in Little Rock call progress. I'll tell you this much. Yesterday in the Senate, there was a moment where things did not go as planned at first in the Arkansas Senate. Things did not go as planned at first, and people threw little temper tantrums. Well, it wasn't even quite temper tantrums. It was more like there was some whining, there was some confusion. It's amazing. I mean, you do one little thing that doesn't go according to plan, according to everyone loses their minds. Yeah, just like the Dark Knight in Joker. One little thing doesn't go according to plan, and it was really interesting because what happened was the Arkansas Senate passed the resolution that's going to send to the ballot a constitutional amendment asking you to vote to make a half-cent sales tax that the government told you would be temporary and make it permanent. Because once the government gets accustomed to a certain amount of revenue, it is like a drug. They are opium addicts, and they can't foresee they don't want to let the tax sunset. But they also don't just want to take a straight up or down vote on it, because then you'd be really mad. So instead, they'll put it on the ballot. They'll hope you'll forget about it in almost 2 years and vote for it in 2020. All right, because you're not going to have the vote until 2020. You see what I'm saying? So that's what they're hoping to do. Well, so Senator Mark Johnson, okay, and we're going to have him on the program next week to talk about this little maneuver he did. Senator Mark Johnson voted for this, and he voted for it, and then immediately after it passed, there were very few Republicans that didn't vote for it. Scott Flippo didn't vote for it. Senator Bart Hester didn't vote for it. I don't know, I'll get the vote count for you here in a minute. I don't have it in front of me, but it passes, and then Senator Mark Johnson stands up and he says, "I'd like to give notice of reconsideration." Then the next question from Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin, who, by the way, I think was he on Fox Business, or I think he was talking about he's a big fan. Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin, big fan of what's been going on in the Department of Education, Betsy DeVos, President Trump, that sort of thing. He tweeted about it, and there's a statement about it. We'll get to that too. Tim Griffin's going to be on the program next week, Tuesday. Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin will be here. So we're excited about talking with him on the phone. Anyway, what's I talking about? Okay, so Mark Johnson, he says, I'd like to give notice for reconsideration. How did you vote? Well, he voted yes. So if you voted yes, and that was the winning side, and so he gives notice, then he essentially gets to put a hold on the bill for 3 days. It doesn't get to actually move out of the Senate yet. And this sent people scurrying. The president pro temp of the Senate, Jim Hendren, the governor's nephew, immediately signaled Mark Johnson to talk to him off of the floor, out of the view of the cameras. And so they went behind closed doors for a while, for a time. Then they came back out and seemed to be what I believe was quite serious conversation. This is, or at least it looked that way from the gallery. And then Mark Johnson went to the well and explained that while he is a freshman, he's been down at the Capitol a long time and he knows the rules. And the rules say if he votes yes for something, he can give notice, not a motion for reconsideration. A motion for reconsideration takes a vote, but he gives a notice. Because you see, Mark Johnson, Senator Johnson, knows the rules. And a lot of the people down there don't know the rules because, and I'm just being honest here, a lot of you don't know the rules because you don't go study them yourself. A lot of you don't, because everything really has kind of a predetermined outcome and result. And you leave, the crafting of how everything's going to go, the order of service, if you will, to the leadership, right? But you throw one little pebble into the gears, and then everybody just loses their minds, right? So it was very amusing. It was very amusing. Now, it was very short-lived because once Senator Johnson went down to the well yesterday, he explained why he did what he did, which is essentially he wanted to draw attention to an idea that he has, and I believe it's another constitutional amendment that he has, where they would raise taxes on casinos. Because, see, a lot of people don't know this. The casinos got a huge, huge tax cut in this last constitutional amendment. And Mark Johnson made the point on the floor. He said it's not right, and I'm paraphrasing, it's not right for us to ask the people of Arkansas to pay more at the pump and to continue the half-cent sales tax when the casinos, which, we do have, we're going to get, casinos now, new ones are being built, and then they're going to expand Oaklawn and Southland. But it's not right to ask the people to pay more when the casino amendment that passed last time actually lowered the tax rate of the gaming industry in this state. And so he makes the point, and then he removes his notice of reconsideration, and the bill advances, which allowed the governor, Governor Asa Hutchinson, to put out his little email press release saying how happy he was that the House and the Senate took bold action and leadership to pass tax increases onto the people. You see, because if Mark Johnson had have left the notice for reconsideration on, Governor Hutchinson wouldn't have been able to send out that email yesterday. And, I mean, that really would have been, it would have just, people wouldn't have been able to handle it. Because, see, when one little thing down there doesn't go how the hierarchy, the establishment wants, it really upsets people. They find security in the plan being executed. Anyway, so hang on a second. Do I have, let me see here. Let's go ahead and get to that article. Where is that article at? Michael Wickline headline, sales tax for roads endorsed in Senate proposal for 2020 ballot okayed 25-7. 25-7. Arkansas Senate on Thursday handily approved, referring to the voters in the 2020 general election, a proposed constitutional amendment that would permanently extend the state's 0.5% sales tax for highways. Now, I consider that a vote for a tax increase. Now, it's a little bit less straightforward, giving it's a little bit more confusing, a little bit harder to explain to the people, and that's why so many people like to do this. But You see, the last bill, the highway bill, the first one, that was a straight-up tax increase. There's no way to argue it. You raise taxes because you've created what you call a new tax on wholesale gas, even though you are all saying that it will result in a 3 to 6 cents at the pump, because you know at the wholesale level they're just going to pass that cost on to consumers. Why? Because corporations don't pay taxes. People pay taxes. So the state legislature passes the tax, and then they come back and they say, well, we're going to now pass, or we're going to have another vote on a constitutional amendment to make a half-cent sales tax, put a half-cent sales tax in our Constitution. Isn't that kind of weird? That doesn't make any sense to me. But they're going to put it in our Constitution, and they're going to claim that they didn't vote for a new tax. They just voted for you to vote whether or not you want to be taxed at the same amount. Technically, this is not true. The tax increase that was passed in 2012 is scheduled to go away in a couple of years, 2022. It was a 10-year program. It was a promise. It was a contract between the government and the people, and now the new government wants to violate those promises, and they have. I mean, it's over. It's done. It's passed the House. It's passed the Senate. The government of Arkansas has essentially confirmed, if anyone is suspicious of the government, if anyone doesn't trust the government, the supermajority Republican legislature has confirmed those suspicions, because they refuse to let a tax sunset and instead want you to vote to keep it. Now, we still have the choice. This is true. We still have the choice. It's $200 million they want to raise from us. $200 million that would go away otherwise. And now there'll be all these campaigns. I'm sure the governor will make ads like he did for the jobs amendment that wasn't about jobs, but it was about more bonds and more debt. I'm sure that's what'll happen. And they'll say, do you want good roads? This is our solution. They will ignore the fact that we spend money on things a vast majority of Arkansans disagree with. We have had $500 million over the last 4 years in increased revenue to the state, but we've spent it on other things that are not roads, and that's why they're coming back to us. You see, fundamentally, they are raising taxes at the pump and raising taxes at the ballot because they have mismanaged the money we've already given them. And there's really no way to look at it any other way. If you look at the numbers, you look at the revenue increases, you look at the spending increases. We talked a lot about that in the Republican primary, right? How under the leadership of the executive branch, the governor, you had spending increases of $133 million one year, the next year $142, the next year $165, the next year $170 million. That's I think this fiscal year that's about to end. This has been pretty clear and consistent. We just kind of go more and more and more. And instead of doing things like demanding that your state agencies cut 1% of their budget, instead of giving them an increase every year, and I know they're doing some reorganization efforts and everything else, and we hope those are successful. I hope those are, just like I hoped that the tax relief task force wasn't a tax relief task farce. I know the session isn't over yet. There may be something else coming down the pike that we get to add to this equation. You see, we're forming an equation here at Conduit News, and the equation is an attempt to take the numbers, the tax cuts, the tax increases, in order to put them into an equation and answer the question, when it's all said and done, are the people of Arkansas paying less money to the government? Are we paying the same amount of money to the government? Or are we paying more money to the government? If the task force was about tax relief, which the word relief was in the name. But you know what actually happened? If you have a memory like I do, you'll remember that at the very beginning, the very first meeting of the Joint Task Force on Taxes, the former Speaker of the House, Jeremy Gillum, needed to make an announcement. And his announcement was that the task force on tax relief wasn't necessarily there to recommend future tax cuts to the General Assembly. He said, despite what you've heard in the headlines, interesting. Then they hired leftist, lifelong Democrat consultant by the name of Randy Bauer. Yeah, I honestly, if it was about tax relief at this point in the legislative session, I think every member of the General Assembly would be justified in asking the question, why did we have a task force for tax relief when we've just cut taxes and then raised them and erased and then some the income tax cuts over the last 4 years if the one at the ballot goes through? Oh, yeah. We're working on an equation. When it's all said and done, we will get you the answer. There's still like 5 more weeks left, so who knows? Maybe there's something else that we don't know. It would be really nice. It'd be really nice if there was a legitimate attempt at corporate tax reform, but then you still got the internet sales tax that they want to pass because the internet sales tax is actually in the governor's budget. Well, that will be even more money coming from the people. Arkansas, the Republican state. We're going to take a break. It's Johnny Cash Friday. Back in a moment.
Chief Justice Roberts, President Carter, President Clinton, President Bush, President Obama, fellow Americans, and people of the world, thank you. We, the citizens of America, are now joined in a great national effort to rebuild our country and restore its promise for all of our people. Together, we will determine the course of America and the world for many, many years to come. We will face challenges. We will confront hardships, but we will get the job done. Every 4 years, we gather on these steps to carry out the orderly and peaceful transfer of power. And we are grateful to President Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama for their gracious aid throughout this transition. They have been magnificent. Thank you. Today's ceremony, however, has very special meaning, because today we are not merely transferring power from one administration to another or from one party to another, but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C. and giving
This is for all you big government establishment Republicans out there. Hope you're listening. I keep a close watch on these votes of mine. I keep my finger in the wind all the time. I vote big government, and you will pay with your dime. 'Cause every time I toe the line. You know, there's always an excuse not to shrink government. It's much easier just to toe that line. I find it very easy to be rhino blue. I find I'm not alone when failing to come through.
Yes, big government, I'm a fool for you. 'Cause every time I toe that line, legislative sleight of hand would be an accurate description. Or you could just say, they can't quit towing that party line. As sure as night is dark and day is light, I'll vote big government both day and night. And act like I'm shocked when it all comes to light. 'Cause every time I toe the line. You know, the phrase toe the line is the equivalent of toe the mark, both of which mean to conform to a rule or standard. You could also call it the status quo. Tax and spend, I'm always on your side. I love writing government checks that I cannot hide. Buying people's votes always turns the tide. 'Cause every time I toe the line. The Oxford Dictionary Word Histories. The idiom toe the line, from an athletics analogy, originated in the early 19th century. I hope you don't watch these votes of mine. Hope you don't see through the lies and slime. 'Cause I plan on spending with your dime. 'Cause every time I toe the line. You know, toeing the line is what the folks down in Little Rock call progress.
PHP Parody.
It back to you.
Yeah, so that would
the
be
people.
auto-tone free. Bring us back here. That'd be auto-tone free. Paul Harrell parody. It's an old one. What did I say? Auto-tune. Yeah, auto-tune free. Yeah, I don't use auto-tune. That's not me. That's not my style.
It sounds stupid anyway.
Taxing us to death. Is that what you mean to say? Let's see, I'm reading some of your Facebook comments. We're broadcasting on several radio stations here in Arkansas. You can find out more. Go to conduitnews.com if you want to find a station near you or other stations. So if you're traveling, you can figure it out. You can also watch us live, facebook.com/Conduit News, or head on over to the YouTube channel. Oh, and go and give us $5 a month to get the extra video over at Patreon. We're doing a extra video every week. If you give us $5 a month, it's Patreon. You can help support Conduit News if that's something that you're into. We would really appreciate it. It's very simple. Just go to patreon.com/CNR. Stands for Conduit News Radio. Patreon.com/CNR. Yeah, so we got an hour from now. We'll be talking with roundabout it's an hour. We'll be talking with Congressman Rick Crawford. Will be back with us. Rick, I gotta figure. I mean, I'm really glad that Rick Crawford's up in Washington representing the 1st Congressional District of Arkansas. Don't misunderstand me, but I am extremely. I don't know if I'd want to be in his shoes. Let me just say that. I feel like dealing with the crazy Democrat Party as it is, that can't even condemn anti-Semitism in a proper fashion. I got to know that it's absolutely maddening that these people won the majority. And it's all because the mainstream media lied to the American people, and they lied about Trump. They lied about all kinds of things, mischaracterized all kinds of positions on the right. And the American people forgot how ridiculous Nancy Pelosi and the socialists are. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she's a socialist, but they're all socialists. It's just varying degrees of trying to convince you they're not socialist while enacting socialist policies with legislative sleight of hand. I mean, that's what it's all about. Did you hear that Paul Manafort's only getting 47 months in prison for tax and bank fraud? It's actually less than that when you consider time served. And the left is freaking out. They're saying it's a miscarriage of justice. It's a miscarriage of justice, according to Senator Blue Menthol.
It back to you, the people. For too long, a small group in our nation's capital has reaped the rewards of government while the people have borne the cost. Washington flourished, but the people did not share in its wealth. Politicians prospered, but the jobs left and the factories closed. The establishment protected itself, but not the citizens of our country. Their victories have not been your victories. Their triumphs have not been your triumphs. And while they celebrated in our nation's capital, there was little to celebrate for struggling families all across our land. That all changes starting right here and right now, because this moment is your moment. It belongs to you. It belongs to everyone gathered here today and everyone watching all across America. This is your day. This is your celebration. And this, the United States of America, is your country. What truly matters is not which party controls our government, but whether our government is controlled by the people. January 20th, 2017 will be remembered as the day the people became the rulers of this nation again. The forgotten men and women of our country will be forgotten no longer. Everyone is listening to you now. You came by the tens of millions to become part of a historic movement, the likes of which the world has never seen before. At the center of this movement is a crucial conviction that a nation exists to serve its citizens. Americans want great schools for their children, safe neighborhoods for their families, and good jobs for themselves. These are just and reasonable demands of righteous people and a righteous public. But for too many of our citizens, a different reality exists. Mothers and children trapped in poverty in our inner cities, rusted out factories scattered like tombstones across the landscape of our nation, an education system flush with cash, but which leaves our young and beautiful students deprived of all knowledge, and the crime and the gangs and the drugs that have stolen too many lives and robbed our country.
All right, sorry. I was. Who are you? I'm taxes galore. I'm what everyone wants. Okay, sorry. Yeah, exactly. Actually, taxes galore. You're what everyone hates. The phone number 870-275-9799. Our whiteboard this week says taxes galore. If you can, and it just dawned on me that you could make a James Bond joke out of it. Anyway, 870-275-9799. A bad one. I mean, a bad James. Just an excuse to do some Sean Connery. All right. You were talking about, I didn't get to make my point. I got cut off because the Johnny Cash music was playing in my ear and I didn't see the clock. And so we went to a hard break and I was still talking. But the Democrats are now saying that Paul Manafort only getting 47 months is a miscarriage of justice. Senator Blumenthal. Now, is that the guy that lied about his Vietnam service? Is that who it is? Blue Menthol, Senator Blue Menthols, and that's what his take is. This is a miscarriage of justice. No, I mean, if you actually read what the judge said, and this judge who was involved in the case in the first place, if you go back when they were hearing the case, he kind of was speculating that Paul Manafort was only being brought up on charges because they were trying to get him to flip on Donald Trump. Which is strange because if you really think about it, the sentencing of Paul Manafort reveals once again, it's yet another indicator, which is now quite a long list, that there was no Russia collusion between the president's campaign and Russia. That it just didn't exist. And I think that's why the judge gave him such a lenient sentence, because I think the sentencing guidelines were something like 20 years or something crazy. And I think the judge realizes this was ridiculous because they found crimes that Paul Manafort committed decades ago. And the only reason he was prosecuted on those crimes is because he helped the president of the United States get into office. And the president is so anti-status quo, the deep state hates him. They hated him so much that they spied on him illegally. Yes, I said it. They spied on the president illegally. We're going to find all of this out. You wait and see. It's all going to come out. The left, even the media, I believe, will have to report on it. It's going to be that big of a deal. The only Russia collusion that exists is collusion between the Democrat Party, Fusion GPS, and the Hillary Clinton for President campaign. They hired a former British spy. You know, it's a good thing he was a former British spy, because if he was a current British spy, that would then mean we now have foreign governments involved in trying to set up and frame a presidential candidate. So it's a good thing Christopher Steele was a former British intelligence agent. It's a very good thing he was a former agent, because if he was a current agent, I think that would make things geopolitically just a little bit tense, like it's a little bit hot around the collar. That's just my 2 cents on it. You know what? We'll ask Rick Crawford what he thinks about all of this, Congressman Crawford, because he's on the House, the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, and he's on that committee, with Devin Nunes, who used to be the chairman before the Democrats, took control of Congress, or took control of the House, 1/3 of the government. So we have that. Okay, back in. Let's dive into this. There is a video out there that has been released by the Little Rock Police Department showing a dash cam video of the officer who was involved in the fatal shooting of a guy who was in a stolen Nissan Altima. Headline here in video: officer heard ordering driver out of car. And the driver says no, and then the driver turns to leave. Like he refuses to get out of the car, and then he drives the car towards the officer, tries to go around his patrol car. The officer opens fire, and the suspect is dead. Now, this should be case closed, but I understand this particular officer has been suspended. There's an investigation involved. The family of the deceased is very upset, and that's understandable because, it's his family. Video released Thursday, according to the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, of a February 22nd police shooting that left a Little Rock man dead, shows the first responding officer firing his weapon at least 15 times, including 12 times after he stepped in front of the car the victim is driving. Now, this is the problem that people have with police officers, and I don't have a problem with it, but this is what they're now going to say about this particular officer. They're going to say he fired 3 shots while he was on the side as the car was moving forward, and then stepped in front of the car to fire the rest. And I believe, just from what I can tell, just speculation, I think this is why everybody has it. I don't have a problem with it, because when a police officer tells you to do something, you comply with it. Not to mention he had his gun drawn. This was a stolen Nissan Altima. Now, I don't know if the deceased knew it was a stolen vehicle. The bottom line is it was a stolen vehicle. There are these little license plate readers that the police department has, and this stolen Nissan Altima went by one of those license plate scanners, which then alerted a detective at the Little Rock Police Department. That Little Rock police detective then started to use the cameras posted throughout the city and began following the Nissan Altima from intersection to intersection. Then they contacted the officer who's involved, and the officer then, once the Nissan Altima got to its destination, the officer pulled up, and that's when the altercation occurred. 13 days after Officer Charles Starks made a traffic stop involving a stolen vehicle, the Little Rock Police Department released audio and video footage of the shooting that killed 30-year-old Bradley Blackshire. Quote, "I understand this video is difficult to watch," Mayor Frank Scott Jr. said. "I want to repeat, it will be difficult to watch. I also understand this video will evoke numerous amounts of emotions." Scott said the department delivered the investigative file on the shooting to the prosecuting attorney's office Thursday. Prosecuting attorney Larry Jegley confirmed Thursday that his office received the file immediately before the 3 p.m. news conference. Before releasing the video, Scott allowed Blackshire's family to view it and provided copies of it to attorneys for Starks and Blackshire's family. Omavi Sakur, an attorney representing Blackshire's family, said the video confirmed his office's assessment that the officer used an unreasonable amount of force when he fired into a slowly moving vehicle. I don't know about you, and I want to talk to a law enforcement officer on this. I want to talk to a law enforcement officer on this. But listen, you're driving a 2-ton weapon. You're driving a car is a 2-ton weapon, and you have been told to stop. You've been told to get out of the car. You openly refuse to get out of the car. You tell the officer no, and then you start driving towards the officer, and we're surprised that you wound up shot. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, because I'm not a police officer, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that every office, that this particular officer did everything right, but he's in the line of duty, and you know what I'm saying? It's a high-stress situation. I mean, let's watch the video, shall we? Let's watch the video. This is a video from the Arkansas Democrat Gazette's YouTube page, which has the edits bleeped out, because there's some strong language because, once cops get into, start shooting people, it's a pretty stressful situation. Just take a watch. We're showing you the video right now at Conduit News' YouTube page or Facebook.com/Conduit News if you want to watch this with us. But take a listen for those of you listening only on terrestrial radio.
In his patrol unit. This activates his dash cam, and at that point, audio can be heard.
Okay.
Hands. Send me some units. I got them at gunpoint. Roll your window down. Roll the window down.
I'm in hold traffic for Young 61.
All right, get out. Get out. Get out. I'll explain it to you in a second. Get out. Get out of the car.
He's in a stolen vehicle.
Get out of the car. Dude, get out of the car. Get out of the car. He's refusing to get out of the car. Dude, get out of the car. Get out of the car. Get out of the car. Get out of the car, dude. Search for it. Get out of the car. Put your hands up. Put your hands up. I need you in the team. Don't move. Don't move. Stay where you're at.
Okay.
Stay where you're at.
Hey, can I get out? He's driving. Can I get out?
I need units.
Hey. Hey, can I jump out?
Get out.
Oh,
We need people. Come over here.
Yes, sir.
Get on the ground for me.
He has a pistol in here.
She said he's got a gun. The pastor's telling me he's still got a gun.
He just picked me up.
Okay.
I swear to God.
I'm putting you in cuffs, man, okay?
That's fine.
Stay back. Stay back.
Put your left hand up!
That's fine.
Put your left hand up!
Information.
You don't have to.
The driver has been struck. He still has a gun.
Sir.
I fired multiple times. Get back.
I'm not gonna run. I'm not gonna run, sir.
I know.
I just got out of jail.
We're about to, hey, if you can keep them back for me, we got a lot of people coming. You hit my knee.
Sir.
My knee.
I just got.
Do you have anything on you, huh?
No, sir.
Okay, stand up for me.
Can you grab my jacket?
He's driver's seat. I shot. Passenger, get in. He hit me. He hit me.
Yeah,
He hit me. I shot him multiple times.
Okay.
I'm okay.
So go ahead and you can stop right there. So this is turning into an issue from what I can tell. They're saying that he used excessive force. And I just think that this is I mean, just from looking at it, and I've looked at it I don't understand how the law enforcement officer, how there's any blame at all on him. That's just me. Because maybe it's because, I mean, I've had very limited interactions with the police, I guess. But I mean, I've been pulled over before, and you know, for speeding, get a seatbelt ticket or something, and I comply with what the officer tells me to do. I don't try to run off. Here's some of your comments on Facebook. Okay. Let me see here. We have some people are taking, they think that this was excessive. Okay. I'm going to read you some of those comments here on our Facebook page, if I can get this thing to work. Larry on Facebook says, my only issue is that a man was murdered over a car. Hang on. No, you can't use the word murder here. A man was killed over a car. Now, I mean, now he may be charged with murder because we have a society now that is upset when police officers do their job. But he might be charged with murder, but you can't say that this was murder. My only issue is that the man was murdered over a car. Because of a car. Really? Just follow him till he gives up. Larry, the problem is, what if it turns into a high-speed chase? What if he hurts somebody else? Okay? What if, you know what I'm saying? What if he kills somebody else in a high-speed car chase? If he, you know what I'm saying? You have this man cornered, and if you are in a stolen vehicle, you are told to stop, you are told to get out, and you don't do those things. It's a pretty easy assumption at that point that you have malintent in your heart, especially against the officer when you're driving a 2-ton weapon towards him, even if it is going 2 miles an hour. Nathan writes, if I did that, it would be murder, not defense. That may be true, but we're talking about, but maybe not actually. Well, with the whole stand your ground law, who knows, failing. But the bottom line is, we're talking about our police officers here. They put themselves in the line of fire. Let's see, we have another one. Amy writes, he tried to run him over. Let me see. He also says, Dennis writes, if I don't have a right, then can I give that right which I don't have to someone else? How is a dead man supposed to get out of a car? I don't know if he was dead immediately. He might have been. I don't know, Dennis. In this, you can check this video out for yourself. Tim, a guy named Tim W. writes, I am a retired law enforcement officer. When an officer tells you to stop, you stop. A felony has been committed, and a person in the car didn't listen to the officer, then tried to run over the officer after being told numerous times to stop. And let's see here. I have another comment. Randy notes that the female is really calm for the situation. We have Dan on Facebook writing that the officer did a great job here. And let's see here. Anyway. Yeah, Gene writing, if the criminal had escaped and killed people, the police officer would have been crucified. That's exactly right. Can we cue the let's just real quick, let's watch this video again. Let's listen to it again. I think you're going to hear a lot of hubbub about this. This may even go national, but I think I've watched it several times. I don't understand why this officer has been suspended or put on administrative leave. I know typically they they put you at a desk job if you're involved in a shooting like this and you're the officer. But they've gone even further. I think they've taken away this guy's badge, and I just don't understand why. I don't understand why. Can we watch the video one more time? Go ahead and just fade the music. I know we got it.
Hands. Send me some units. I got them at gunpoint. Roll your window down. Roll the window down.
I'm in soldier traffic for Young 61.
All right, get out. Get out. Get out. I'll explain it to you in a second. Get out. Get out of the car. Get out of the car. Dude, get out of the car. Get out of the car. He's refusing to get out of the car. Dude, get out of the car. Get out of the car.
And then the car starts to move.
Get out of the car.
Why is he trying to drive away?
Get out of the car. Put your hands up. Put your hands up. I need you in C-18. Don't move. Don't move. Stay where you're at.
Okay.
Stay where you're at.
Hey, can I get out? He's driving. Can I get out?
I need units.
Hey. Hey, can I jump out?
Get out. We need people. Come over here.
Yes, sir.
Get on the ground for me.
He has a pistol in there.
She said he's got a gun. The pastor is telling me he's still got a gun.
He just picked me up.
Okay.
I swear to God.
I'm putting you in cuffs, man, okay?
All right, go ahead. You can stop right there.
Stay back.
All right, so a few more of your comments. We have another Tim, good friend Tim Loggins, said the officer didn't tell the driver the reason for the stop, his only mistake. So I said that earlier. It's possible here that the driver of this stolen vehicle didn't know the car was stolen. I mean, that's extremely possible. But then you also get to the point of when an officer and his gun is already drawn, why would you try to drive off and think that you're not going to get shot? Or shot at least. I mean, it's just I don't know. I don't see how I don't see how somebody can watch that video and be like, oh, it's the officer's fault. I mean, we're all uncomfortable with any type of force if we're honest. I mean, nobody wants somebody to lose their life. Nobody is happy that this man is dead. It's a tragedy. But we have to have law and order, too. We're going to take a break. Let me know. Sound off on the Facebook page, facebook.com/Conduit News.
Of so much unrealized potential. This American carnage stops right here and stops right now.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. Are you a conservative-minded young person and want to let the world know about it? Are you tired of rolling your eyes as your professor regurgitates progressive, PC, neo-Marxist nonsense? then you should interview on Conduit News Radio's Young Conservative segment and tell us about why you believe the way you do. Tell us how you came to be a conservative and what are your views on government. Now, if you're worried that your neo-Marxist professor may also be a right-wing talk radio listening masochist, then names can be changed to protect the innocent. It's the Conduit News Radio Conservative Future segment. To be interviewed, call 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Of so much unrealized potential. This American carnage stops right here and stops right now. We are one nation, and their pain is our pain. Their dreams are our dreams, and their success will be our success. We share one heart, one home, and one glorious destiny. The oath of office I take today is an oath of allegiance to all Americans. For many decades, we've enriched foreign industry at the expense of American industry, subsidized the armies of other countries while allowing for the very sad depletion of our military. We've defended other nations' borders while refusing to defend our own. And spent trillions and trillions of dollars overseas while America's infrastructure has fallen into disrepair and decay. We've made other countries rich while the wealth, strength, and confidence of our country has dissipated over the horizon. One by one, the factories shuttered and left our shores.
A few of your comments. If you don't stop or comply with police demands, then 99% of the time you are armed and will shoot police. Just saying. Okay, so in the lady in the car with the deceased was saying that he did have a gun. Maria writes, his choices created his outcome. Stolen car, gun, not listening to the police officer, trying to drive off. Let's see here. Amy writes, if the suspect is not neutralized, can he/he still fire back? Nathan writes, pulling a gun merely for intimidation, not in immediate danger, so steps in front of car to begin shooting and jumps on hood like an episode of Miami Vice. I mean, I don't see it that way. I do know he fires 2 or 3 shots before he steps in front of the car, and people who are going to put this officer under a microscope now are probably going to find problems with that. They're going to have some issue with the fact that he fired 3 times before he stepped in front of the car. But, I mean, our officers are in an enormous amount of stress, and again, watch the video. The guy should have driven off.
The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 1230 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
about the millions and millions of American workers that were left behind. The wealth of our middle class has been ripped from their homes and then redistributed all across the world. But that is the past. And now we are looking only to the future. We assembled here today are issuing a new decree to be heard in every city, in every foreign capital, and in every hall of power. From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land. From this day forward, it's going to be only America first. America first. Every decision on trade, on taxes, on immigration, on foreign affairs will be made to benefit American workers and American families. We must protect our borders from the ravages of other countries making our products, stealing our companies, and destroying our jobs. Protection will lead to great prosperity and strength. I will fight for you with every breath in my body, and I will never, ever let you down. America will start winning again, winning like never before. We will bring back our jobs. We will bring back our borders. We will bring back our wealth. And we will bring back our dreams. We will build new roads and highways and bridges and airports and tunnels and railways all across our wonderful nation. We will get our people off of welfare and back to work, rebuilding our country with American hands and American labor. We will follow two simple rules: buy American and hire American. We will seek friendship and goodwill with the nations of the world, but we do so with the understanding that it is the right of all nations to put their own interests first. We do not seek to impose our way of life on anyone, but rather to let it shine as an example. We will shine for everyone to follow. We will reinforce old alliances and form new ones, and unite the civilized world against radical Islamic terrorism, which we will eradicate completely from the face of the earth. At the bedrock of our politics will be a total allegiance to the United States of America. And through our loyalty to our country, we will rediscover our loyalty to each other. When you open your heart to patriotism, there is no room for prejudice. The Bible tells us how good and pleasant it is when God's people live together in unity. We must speak our minds openly, debate our disagreements honestly, but always pursue solidarity. When America is united, America is totally unstoppable. There should be no fear. We are protected, and we will always be protected. We will be protected by the great.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. 870-275-9799. Hour number 2. It is Johnny Cash Friday. We'll get to some Johnny Cash music here in a minute. Towards the end of the last hour, we started talking about this new dash cam video that was released yesterday by the Little Rock Police Department. This is going to have people on the left and right arguing because we have people saying that this officer committed, there's people that want to say he committed some sort of civil rights violation when he stopped the guy who was in a stolen vehicle, and the guy said, and the guy refused to get out of the car and then started to drive off, and then the officer opened fire and then ended up on the hood of the car and shot more and killed the guy. Number one, if you're stopped by a police officer, do what he says. Number two, don't try to drive off in a stolen vehicle. Number three, don't even drive. If you're going to drive off, don't even drive off in the vicinity of the officer because the officer's going to take that as a threat because you're in a 2-ton weapon.
Sorry, but regardless of the age, gender, ethnicity, all the variables that could go into an individual's identity as a person, like what constitutes all of the the questionnaires that you get on all of the forms.
Yeah, which group do you belong to?
Regardless of all of that, doesn't matter what the person looks like.
Yeah, well, it does in this day and age, Joe. I mean, I know ideally it wouldn't.
No, it doesn't matter. The officer would have probably reacted the same way.
Oh, absolutely.
Of a guy driving.
Absolutely. It doesn't matter who would be, but
Exactly.
I don't think it would matter. Like, I really don't. You've already got your gun drawn. You're in a stolen vehicle. Before releasing the video, Scott allowed Blackshire's family, that's the deceased's family, to view it. Scott is the mayor of Little Rock, new mayor of Little Rock. Provided copies of it to attorneys for Starks and Blackshire's family. Scott said FBI officials informed Little Rock police a few days after the shooting that they intended to review the investigation, quote, from a civil rights perspective, end quote. Scott said he had no further information about the scope or purpose of the FBI's review. They also want to get body cams now. Hang on one second. There was a comment here. See, the car slows, Starks moves in front of it, and then as the Ultima rolls forward, Starks fires about a dozen more shots. In the video, Desiree Clark, a passenger in Blackshire's car, throws her hands into the air as bullets enter through the windshield. Shots fired, Starks says into his radio. When the car finally stops in a ditch behind the parking lot, Clark climbs out through the shattered passenger window and raises her hands. He has a gun, Clark says quickly. On Monday, Blackshire's family requested that the Arkansas State Police investigate the shooting, but spokesman Bill Sadler of the Arkansas State Police said that they have declined to investigate because the office doesn't do this after the fact unless they're immediately called in because they don't have access to the scene as it is. Sadler said the Little Rock Department called and requested the investigation between 12:30 and 1 p.m. yesterday. Shakur, the lawyer for the deceased's family, said he did not want to comment on Blackshire's family reaction to the video, but there was nothing to indicate Mr. Blackshire knew why he was being approached by Starks in that manner. So he may not have known. That was my suspicion, that the deceased did not know he was in a stolen car. The officer did not tell him. That is one thing people are saying that he should have done. He should have said, hey, you're in a stolen car. But again, the guy should have complied with the officer, gotten out of the car, and not tried to drive off in the vicinity of the officer. And then we see here the National Fraternal Order of the Police. They're saying, this is Ronnie Morgan, watched the video before it was released. In a news release last week, Morgan expressed support for Starks, the officer, and his family. And after seeing the video, quote, we still feel the same way. And then we have the spokesman and president of the Little Rock Black Police Officers Association did not request comment or did not return requests for comment, according to the Gazette. And Don Jeffrey, the director of community relations for Seeds of Liberation, a Little Rock community organization that helps people recently released from prison to reacclimate to society. The organization also takes on civil rights projects. Don Jeffrey attended the news conference. Quote, if somebody comes to the car and puts a gun in your face, you want to ask, do you have probable cause? I don't understand how people are trying to make this make sense. Well, let's watch the video for yourself.
Hands. Send me some units. I got them at gunpoint. Roll your window down. Roll the window down.
I'm in charge of traffic for Young 61.
All right, get out. Get out. Get out. I'll explain it to you in a second. Get out. Get out of the car. Get out of the car. Dude, get out of the car. Get out of the car. He's refusing to get out of the car.
He said no there.
Dude, get out of the car. Get out of the car. Get out of the car. Get out of the car, dude.
Get out of the car! Put your hands up! Put your hands up!
I need you in the 18.
Don't move! Don't move!
Stay where you're at.
Okay.
Stay where you're at.
Do we have the other angle? We've seen this one. Can we? Let's see the other angle. This is the second angle from the other car that came up. You see this one? We haven't seen this one yet.
Get out of the car! Put your hands up!
All right. Okay.
Hands up!
So that's the that's the video, and it's a disturbing video. I mean, there's no question. I mean, because we're talking about somebody's life is gone now, and so it's obviously it's a tragedy, but a civil rights violation, really? This is going to get, in my opinion, I think this may get pretty contentious. Because it's going to fit into a leftist narrative about white police officers killing black people. So we'll see what happens. But I think if you watch that video, it's very clear. I don't even know why I have to say this. Ladies and gentlemen, if a police officer tells you to do something, you need to do it. And you certainly don't need to try to drive off in a stolen vehicle. Now, maybe he didn't know the vehicle was stolen. Well, that doesn't even matter in this context. The officer has a gun pointed at you, telling you to get out of the car. And the deceased says, no, I ain't got nothing. Watch it for yourself. And contrast what you just saw with this. The Daily Signal. After nearly going to jail for shoplifting, this football player now advocates for criminal justice reform. This is New Orleans Saints defensive lineman Demario Davis. He played at Arkansas State for the Red Wolves, and this is, instead of taking a knee, by the way, like Colin Kaepernick does to try to accomplish something, Demario Davis is actually trying to accomplish something that will have a political outcome when it comes to these excessive cash bails that get people into a system of slavery. He actually used that word. He appeared at CPAC. Demario Davis was at CPAC, and he was given an interview. This is, again, a former A-State football player who's now in the NFL, led the NFL in tackles last year for the New Orleans Saints. Listen to this. Go ahead and click on the video, Joe. I've got it queued up.
Oh, all the time. If you look in the communities where we raised, a lot of the men are not in the household for various reasons. So the young boys, I believe very much so that it takes a man to teach a boy how to be a man. And when they're not around, the boys are just going to look to the older guys in society, and the older guys in our society were drug dealers, gangbangers, and whatnot. And so that's kind of who we followed and tried to emulate, and that's what took us down a bad path. So we have to think about that we're actually making our communities less safer when we take people and lock them up for that extended time for nonviolent offenses, because they're going to be gone from their family. It's going to drastically push them into even more poverty, because if my mom, had I not had a coach, my mom would have tried everything she could to get me out of jail on bail, which would have forced her to go to a bail bondman, who would have made her put her house up, maybe put her car up.
Stop for a second.
And just kind of locked her into something.
So the story is when Demario Davis got to Jonesboro, it was his first year. I believe he redshirted his first year, and he was caught shoplifting food from Walmart, and he was put in jail, $10,000 bail. And he says that he was very fortunate because he was an athlete. The coaches secured his bail, and then eventually, just keep listening. But I wanted to show that that's the context here, okay? A lot of people make bad decisions out there. It's what you do after you make the bad decision. Listen to this.
Type of slave type system, something that she couldn't pay back, and when she couldn't pay back, she was indebted to the bail bums, which would have pushed her into even more poverty.
Yeah. We've got to do something about this bail system. It's not, but again, the bail bond lobbyists are, every time the reform moves forward, they sort of seize in. But it's not good for us as a people. It's not good for the community. It's certainly not good for children. I want to talk for a moment about your Devoted Dreamers Foundation. Tell people a little bit about, in your personal life, when you come out of prison, you're at the, well, you weren't there for long, but you were caught up in the system. You come out, you're at Arkansas State, you meet a pastor there who really changed your life.
Yes, very much so.
Tell me what happened there.
So I had the opportunity to be discipled by our team chaplain, and a little bit after, when I was in jail for the 3 days that I was in there, I just started to really wrestle and understand my life isn't going the direction I wanted to go. And he just started spending time with me day by day, asking questions about what I thought about life. And he introduced me to the Bible and started to teach me about a relationship with Christ. He walked me into a relationship with Christ, and it changed my life and the perspective that I had of life tremendously. You know, no longer was my life about glorifying myself, but it was about living a life worthy of glorifying the King.
Glorifying the King.
I watched how it was amazing. My whole life I had never seen a two-parent household and be led under God, and so I watched him and how he raised his family, and it inspired me to do the same. I've been married now 7 years, 3 amazing kids, and they all raised in the household of Christ, and it changed tremendously. And so had I never got that second chance, my life could look totally different. But because I had that second chance, and that's the importance that we make sure we're doing with the rest of society, instead of throwing people away and locking away the key, we need to be making sure we're trying our best to give them second chances, because you never know what kind of positivity can come out of that.
And connection, I love in your story, connections, mentorship. We can't give up on anybody. And one of the beautiful things, I live in New Orleans, and if you have not seen this guy play, I was in the Superdome this last season. You all are going to the Super Bowl next year. I'm just saying it now. You heard it here first at CPAC, okay? At the end of every major play, Demario does something that you all perhaps have not seen. But watch closely next season, because I think you're going to see a lot of it. I mean, this guy led in tackles last season. He'll do it again. Show people what you do at the end of a major play. There's a gesture you do. Show it to. I know it's a little awkward here.
A lot of times, if you haven't seen it, what I'll do is after a sack or a big play or an interception, what I'll use
or an interception.
When I find a camera, you'll see me do that. And it's a very simple.
So he's just making a symbol of Jesus on the cross.
Tell people what it means.
A lot of people have seen that, and a lot of believers would know what that means, but because they've seen that pose so much. But it's simply Jesus on the cross. And we're called as believers to be imitators of Christ, take up our cross daily. And that's just a representation that every big play is not for me, but it's about glory above. And so that's why I do it, to make sure that I'm
This is Demario Davis New Orleans Saints player
Okay,
at CPAC.
Beautiful. I mean, it's incredible witness.
Last weekend.
In our final minutes, I've got to ask you that. I was in the Dome during that Steelers game.
Listen to this.
There was a fumble at the end, near the end of the game. This guy recovers it and shut the Steelers down. Then you all go to the championship. And there was that missed call that every member of the Houdat Nation is still, thank you, my people. We're all Houdat Nation today. The pain, and that was tough. That was a tough moment. The NFL, it seems, is not going to reform those misplays or allow any replays or reviews. Is that a mistake?
I think a lot goes into it. You always have to be able to see both sides of it because, you know, that was a very unfortunate play that happened to us because we do feel like it changed the trajectory of it and a trajectory of what could have happened next. But you do have to realize that a lot of games will be affected by the rule change, which it could ultimately slow down the pace of the game.
I get it.
So you do have to understand that there are two perspectives. I think as far as what happened to us, it was a beautiful opportunity for us to take a negative situation and turn it into a positive. You look at Drew Brees' response to the entire city about, hey, we're not going to be bitter about this. We're not going to be resentful. We're going to actually turn this negative into a positive. We're going to use it as fuel and motivation to come back next year. And I think that's where we have to be as a society. It's a lot of bad things happening around us, but it's very easy to take a negative situation and turn it into a positive situation. Life is 10% what happened to you and 90% how you respond to it.
There it is. Stop. Again, life is 10%. The rest, the 90%, is how you respond to it. Again, that's former A-State, star player Demario Davis at CPAC talking about criminal justice reform and his story of redemption, his story of knowing who Jesus Christ is, how that changed his life, how he's raising his family now, the relationship that the coaches and the chaplain had with him to disciple him, to introduce him to Scripture, to introduce him, to the gospel and the redemptive nature. And now, of course, he's a star player for the New Orleans Saints. I had this, and I mentioned this earlier in the week. Actually, this was meant to be played during this segment earlier in the week because I found it and I thought it was so inspiring, especially that last part. He could pile on. He could. If he wanted to, he could talk about how the refs made a terrible call, the NFL's made terrible calls, and he just says no. What a out of this world reaction to something that happened bad to him and his teammates personally. An unfair call. Objectively, it's unfair. They missed the call, and his reaction is one that is conspicuous, not what you would expect, not what the average person does. I wonder if that has something to do with a gospel world view. We're going to take a break. It's Johnny Cash Friday. Back in just a moment.
And highways and bridges and airports and tunnels and railways all across our wonderful nation. We will get our people off of welfare and back to work, rebuilding our country with American hands and American labor. We will follow two simple rules: buy American and hire American. We will seek friendship and goodwill with the nations of the world, but we do so with the understanding that it is the right of all nations to put their own interests first. We do not seek to impose our way of life on anyone, but rather to let it shine as an example. We will shine for everyone to follow. We will reinforce old alliances and form new ones and unite the civilized world against radical Islamic terrorism, which we will eradicate completely from the face of the earth. At the bedrock of our politics will be a total allegiance to the United States of America. And through our loyalty to our country, we will rediscover our loyalty to each other. When you open your heart to patriotism, there is no room for prejudice. The Bible tells us how good and pleasant it is when God's people live together in unity. We must speak our minds openly, debate our disagreements honestly, but always pursue solidarity. When America is united, America is totally unstoppable. There should be no fear. We are protected, and we will always be protected. We will be protected by the great men and women of our military and law enforcement. And most importantly, we will be protected by God. Finally, we must think big and dream even bigger. In America, we understand that a nation is only living as long as it is striving. We will no longer accept politicians who are all talk and no action, constantly complaining but never doing anything about it. The time for empty talk is over. Now arrives the hour of action. Do not allow anyone to tell you that it cannot be done. No challenge can match the heart and fight and spirit of America. We will not fail. Our country will thrive and prosper again. We stand at the birth of a new millennium, ready to unlock the mysteries of space, to free the earth from the miseries of disease, and to harness the energies, industries, and technologies of tomorrow. A new national pride will stir our souls, lift our sights, and heal our divisions. It's time to remember that old wisdom our soldiers will never forget, that whether we are black or brown or white, we all bleed the same red blood of patriots. We all enjoy the same glorious freedoms, and we all salute the same great American flag. And whether a child is born in the urban sprawl of Detroit or the windswept plains of Nebraska, they look up at the same night sky, they fill their heart with the same dreams, and they are infused with the breath of life by the same almighty Creator.
All right, we got about a minute and a half. 870-275-9799 on this Johnny Cash Friday. Coming up, we got Congressman Rick Crawford will be calling in. He'll be on the show here at 7:33. You don't want to miss that. It's always great to talk to Rick. Headline, Judge asked to deny ex-senator's bid to toss charges. Lisa Hammersley. This has to do with the governor's nephew, Jeremy Hutchinson, who's been charged with campaign finance fraud or illegal activity. Prosecutors said Thursday that a federal judge should deny former state senator Jeremy Hutchinson's request for dismissal of wire and tax fraud charges because his claims of government misconduct are false and fail to meet a stiff legal test. Essentially, that's from Lisa Hammersley, the Democrat Gazette. Essentially, what Hutchinson's high-priced attorneys are claiming is that there was a laptop that his girlfriend stole, gave to the FBI, and they shouldn't have done that or something or other, and that's some of the evidence that they have on him. So, I mean, it's very clear that Hutchinson is trying to get off not because he's innocent, but because of a technicality. Like that's what he's arguing here. 50-page filing by prosecutors also reveals communications between Hutchinson with federal investigators and with his former girlfriend, who provided evidence against him. Back in a minute.
And highways and bridges and airports and tunnels and railways all across our wonderful nation. We will get our people off of welfare and back to work, rebuilding our country with American hands and American labor. We will follow two simple rules: buy American and hire American. We will seek friendship and goodwill with the nations of the world, but we do so with the understanding that it is the right of all nations to put their own interests first. We do not seek to impose our way of life on anyone, but rather to let it shine as an example. We will shine for everyone to follow. We will reinforce old alliances and form new ones and unite the civilized world against radical Islamic terrorism, which we will eradicate completely from the face of the earth. At the bedrock of our politics will be a total allegiance to the United States of America. And through our loyalty to our country, we will rediscover our loyalty to each other. When you open your heart to patriotism, there is no room for prejudice. The Bible tells us how good and pleasant it is when God's people live together in unity. We must speak our minds openly, debate our disagreements honestly, but always pursue solidarity. When America is united, America is totally unstoppable. There should be no fear. We are protected, and we will always be protected. We will be protected by the great men and women of our military and law enforcement. And most importantly, we will be protected by God. Finally, we must think big and dream even bigger. In America, we understand that a nation is only living as long as it is striving. We will no longer accept politicians who are all talk and no action, constantly complaining but never doing anything about it. The time for empty talk is over. Now arrives the hour of action. Do not allow anyone to tell you that it cannot be done. No challenge can match the heart and fight and spirit of America. We will not fail. Our country will thrive and prosper again. We stand at the birth.
All right, folks, welcome back to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. Let's get right to it. We got Congressman Rick Crawford on the line. Rick, how you doing this morning, sir?
I am doing great. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic. Really glad that you could spend some time with us this morning. So I was just telling folks in the first hour how I wouldn't want to be you. I wouldn't want to be in your shoes after the Democrats have taken over, and you're having to deal with this, this insanity where they can't even condemn anti-Semitism.
That was just unbelievable. The thing that they did, they'll never want to acknowledge this, but the thing they did was they just basically heaped further insults on folks who have been victimized by anti-Semitism by their inability to act appropriately and to call it out. In contrast, Steve King was roundly rebuked by name in a resolution. He was specifically by name, and it wasn't buried in the text of the deal. It led with a whereas Steve King said X, Y, and Z. And not only that, he voted for the resolution condemning that. So at least he showed contrition.
Yes.
And I will say this, that our majority leader, our Kevin McCarthy, he had the courage to call him out and put that resolution on the floor. And this woman is being given every reason to continue her behavior, and she's not being called out. And the way they look, I tried to read this bill multiple times, and they kept changing it. And so they can't even follow their own rules. They said they're going to strictly adhere to the 72-hour rule, and they kept throwing this thing out and throwing this thing out. I mean, they have no intention of following any kind of rules at all. It was an absolute debacle, and my record of support for the nation of Israel, my record against anti-Semitism or any kind of hate speech is unassailable. But I'm going to tell you this: I voted for that unequivocally no, because it was such a ridiculous show.
Oh yeah, it was a show, and the Democrats who are trying to who are on the side of getting a real resolution condemning anti-Semitism. For them, I just want to be like, and this is politically incorrect, but you're shocked. I mean, she's a congresswoman that prescribes to the faith of Islam, and she doesn't like Jews. Surprise. I mean, this is not something that's new. This is, in my opinion, is to be expected. We're talking with Congressman Rick Crawford. I know you're short on time this morning. I wanted to get your thoughts. Paul Manafort only sentenced to 47 months. The left is freaking out. The judge seemed to think this wouldn't have even existed. His crimes wouldn't have even been brought to the forefront if it wasn't for Donald Trump. I am just so ready to get the FISA. I want it declassified. I want the American people, I want the press to have to report on what really happened, and I know you as a member of the House Intelligence Committee do as well. Do we know when some of these documents may be declassified?
Well, they might be declassified when Mueller presents his findings and that becomes public. But there's some supporting documents, obviously, that would have to. The president has the authority to declassify at any point in time, and so ultimately, I think it's going to come down to his decision. He's been hesitant to do that. Not really sure I understand why he's been so hesitant to do that, because it would really provide a whole lot of context and eliminate a whole lot of the the speculation and the conjecture that's out there surrounding this issue. But I'm not gonna question his decision on when and if to declassify. But I do think it would clear up a whole lot of confusion on the part of the American people who are kind of wondering just exactly what did happen. And quite frankly, we've got to correct this issue with FISA.
I mean, it really was. I mean, I know you've said this on the show before. The only Russia collusion was with the Hillary Clinton and the Democrats, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that's clear. And so the people like Adam Schiff continue to push that line, and they're going to find Russia collusion. Look, they've had 2 years and they've not presented any evidence at all, and yet he will go on national media and claim that he has not just circumstantial evidence, but hard evidence that proves that there was Russia collusion, and yet they haven't found any. And I guess the arrogance of Adam Schiff, that he thinks that Mueller, with all of his authority and all of the resources he has at his disposal, and the 30-odd years of experience that he brings to the table, that he couldn't find Russia collusion. But boy, Adam Schiff can, because he's just that good. So now listen, for 2 years we've been hearing from Adam Schiff and the others that Mueller was an individual of unassailable character. He was the guy for the job, and we just need to let this thing play out. And then when they start to hear that maybe Mueller's going to come forward with some findings that don't necessarily comport with their narrative, then they start the undermining Mueller and the discrediting of Mueller because they're trying to set themselves up to be the credible ones. So, and we're CNN and MSNBC and all of this. You know that they not remember hearing the Democrats in Washington talking about we've got to let the Mueller investigation play out. We've got to trust Mueller. Mueller's the right guy for the job. Yada yada yada. Well, now all of a sudden that's changed. Mueller now is no good because he's going to come forward with findings that they don't like. So they're going to do everything they can to discredit him in advance, so that the findings are then diminished.
Yeah, and then they're going to go on with the subpoenas. You've got Jerry Nadler and the judiciary, and they're trying to. I mean, he even said this in his media tour. They're trying to convince the American people, and they want these investigations to continue until the last vote is counted, November 2020. Right?
Oh, no question about it. And so, I mean, the number of subpoenas they've got going out, I bet few, if any, have anything to do with Russia in the first place. I mean, they're going after financial stuff. They're going after his family. They're going after process crimes. They're trying to set perjury traps. Anything they can do to try and, continue to diminish everything that the president has accomplished to date and weaken him going into the 2020 election. And there's been no introspection at all on this on their part. Like, where did you go wrong in 2016? What can you do differently that might actually result in the different outcome? That's not what it's about.
Yeah.
They are so enraged that their candidate didn't win that they can't focus on anything else.
Last question, Congressman Rick Crawford. Is there any optimism up there among your Republican colleagues in the House about the idea of taking back the House of Representatives because the left has gone so far to the left, socialists, Alexandria Cortez, and maybe the American people are going to be reminded just how just what the values of the Democrat Party are? Is there any optimism?
Absolutely. We're extremely optimistic, and every time AOC opens her mouth, the needle swings, pushes further in our direction. And same thing with this Omar from Minnesota and several others. This woman from Massachusetts that put forth an amendment yesterday to allow for 16-year-olds to vote. It's things like that I mean, that doesn't square with people who live and work in rural America and, flyover country. I mean, that may be fine up in Boston, New York City, but it's just not going to play, in the heartland. And people are starting to see this. They're not starting to see it. It's on full display. And so, like I said, they got bigger problems in 2020 than they realize. And it starts with, 3 or 4 members in the caucus. And of course, Pelosi's abject failure as a leader and her inability to lead on the basic issue of condemning anti-Semitism. I mean, come on. You can't even manage that. So, and, you think the Freedom Caucus is a problem for Republicans. My goodness. Not even close. Not even close.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Well, Congressman Rick Crawford, it's always a pleasure to have you on, sir. We appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks, man.
Okay, have a great weekend. Folks, we'll have a copy of this interview up at conduitnews.com later in the day. Matter of fact, we're going to have several interviews up because we've had a little glitch the last couple of days, but we'll get the interviews from the previous days up for today. Let's talk a little bit more about this Arkansas Democrat Gazette article by Lisa Hammersley, because there's some gems in here about former state senator Jeremy Hutchinson. The judge has been asked again to deny the senator's bid to toss the charges. He's trying to basically get off on a technicality that has to do with his mistress's girlfriend gave the FBI a laptop in 2012, and they're trying to say that there was something that was wrong about that. And so the charges need to be dropped. If you read Hammersley, though, here, He says the claims are, quote, manufactured claims asserted in an effort to avoid the substance of the charges against him fail. This is the U.S. attorneys saying this. They're trying to say the judge do not throw the charges out. Even if Hutchinson's allegations were true, the actions would not meet the high legal bar of outrageousness needed to dismiss charges, according to the prosecution. Outrageous government conduct requires dismissal of a charge only if it falls within the narrow band of the most intolerable government conduct, federal appeals courts have ruled. It was a 50-page filing from the prosecutors, and it reveals some gems. Listen to this. The prosecution writes, Hutchinson freely and voluntarily admitted violations of campaign finance and tax laws in an FBI interview. So they got that. They've got an FBI interview where he admits it, according to the prosecution. Man, this trial is going to be, discovery on this is going to be interesting. I wonder how much of the documents are going to be sealed. You can tell I'm excited, right? By the way, I'm ready for Tim Brooks. I'm ready for, he had an order in the John Woods case. Tim Brooks had an order to unseal everything, and then it's under appeal right now. We're still waiting on all of the court documents from the conviction of Senator John Woods. Here, listen to this one. Hutchinson acted, according to the prosecution, Hutchinson acted as a confidential informant for the FBI between July 15th, 2014 and August 2nd of 2016 while serving as a state senator. Interesting. That was around the time everybody thought somebody was running around wearing a wire. A lot of people thought it was indicted former Senator Gilbert Baker. How many former senators do we have that are getting indicted for various crimes? Where is the Medicaid disclosure bill? Where is that? If you want to get serious about ethics, Arkansas, the blueprint is there. The bills have already been written. They were written 2 sessions ago. Lisa Hammersley, Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, writes that Hutchinson undertook the informant role, hoping for leniency in an effort to receive consideration from the U.S. Attorney's Office regarding his criminal exposure to bribery and other charges prosecutors wrote in Thursday's filing. You mean the bribery like Milton Rusty Russell Cranford said in his guilty plea, the $500,000 he alleged he bribed Jeremy Hutchinson with Medicaid money? Medicaid disclosure, making these politicians disclose secret deals. No, we don't want to do that. We want those deals to remain secret. Bribery. I wonder if it has to do with any other bribery allegations. You see, a lot of people don't know this or they forget this, but we interviewed a dentist that claimed that it is among the dental community. It is widely known that Jeremy Hutchinson, this is not my allegation, this was the dentist that we interviewed, said that it was widely known that a specific dentist paid Jeremy Hutchinson 6 figures in order to change the Dental Practices Act. And then it was just widely known that if you wanted to get a piece of legislation tweaked here or there, you went to Hutchinson and you paid him a retainer fee, and he would get your legislation passed. That he was the guy to get stuff done. And I think that's largely true. You want to know why I think that's largely true, aside from the guilty plea of Milton Russell Rusty Cranford, who tried to have a guy killed? People forget that, by the way. People forget that Milton Russell Rusty Cranford, according to the government, he's, by the way, the lobbyist that's the linchpin in all of these scandals. He's connected to everybody, even people who haven't been indicted yet but are referenced as Senator B or Senator C. Milton Rusty Cranford was trying to have a witness who pled guilty 2 years ago in New Jersey. By the way, that's how big this case is. This is a federal Medicaid dollars. This is big time. He was trying to have a guy killed in New Jersey that had pled guilty who was turning on Rusty Cranford. And so when they arrested Rusty after the government recorded the conversation he had with the murder for hire guy, a former felon, they found him with a revolver and $17,000 in cash on him. That's Milton Russell Rusty Cranford. So he pleads guilty. And then he implicates Jeremy Hutchinson in taking these bribes. And then, of course, we have, again, back to this knowledge, this idea that if you wanted to get something done in Arkansas politics, you'd go to Jeremy Hutchinson. At least this is the hypothesis. And if you pay him using the attorney loophole that they need to eliminate, but they haven't yet. Hello? They haven't eliminated the attorney loophole yet. Then you get stuff done. I tend to believe that's the case, not just because of Milton Russell Rusty Cranford's, but also because of the dental allegations and the mock GoFundMe that's been put on by former U.S. Senator Tim Hutchinson and the Washington, D.C. circuit, these Washington, D.C. attorneys that are now representing him. That's why I think it's true, because if you'll remember the fundraising letter, they put out a fundraising letter, and I said at the time that it's a shakedown of the shakedown, okay? That they were asking all of the Little Rock elites to donate to Jeremy Hutchinson's defense. And don't you know they did, by the way? Don't you know they donated? Because you would have every personal incentive. Nobody wants Jeremy Hutchinson to take a plea. Let me just tell you that right now. If Jeremy Hutchinson takes a plea and pleads guilty, you're going to hear the oxygen sucked out of the Little Rock establishment faster. I mean, it's going to be epic if he were to take a plea. And that's why he has got to beat the rap. This is an attempt for the establishment to protect themselves, because I promise you this, there is a lot more that we don't know. There is a lot more that we don't know. And that's why I think, when that fundraising letter went out saying he's innocent and please help, there's a lot of people out there that probably know that they might be incriminated personally. And I'm not necessarily talking about politicians, although I wouldn't exclude them. I'm just talking about the people, the businesses that have benefited from legislation, and maybe, I'm just saying, this is, and it's really a stupid loophole. Because you're an attorney, you get away with all this stuff in Arkansas. Because, it has been a commonplace of agreement everywhere that if you take extra money to pass legislation, that we think that's illegal and it shouldn't be allowed to happen. That's criminal, exactly. It's criminal. And we read here that Hutchinson acted as a confidential informant for the FBI between 2014 and 2016, and that he did that because he knew that the feds already had something on him on bribery, quote, bribery, according to Lisa Hammersley in the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Hutchinson claims in his February 7th motion that the government conducted an unlawful search of a laptop computer stolen by his former girlfriend, unlawfully destroyed evidence. Prosecutor said Thursday that's not what happened. The former girlfriend, identified as Individual 1, gave the FBI in August 2012 2 laptops, 2 cell phones, and an external hard drive, plus a partridge in a pear tree. We got to take a break.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. Are you a conservative-minded young person and want to let the world know about it? Are you tired of rolling your eyes as your professor regurgitates progressive, PC, neo-Marxist nonsense?
then you should interview on Conduit News Radio's Young Conservative segment and tell us about why you believe the way you do. Tell us how you came to be a conservative and what are your views on government. Now, if you're worried that your neo-Marxist professor may also be a right-wing talk radio listening masochist, then names can be changed to protect the innocent. It's the Conduit News Radio Conservative Future segment. To be interviewed, call 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
The same great American flag. And whether a child is born in the urban sprawl of Detroit or the windswept plains of Nebraska, they look up at the same night sky, they fill their heart with the same dreams, and they are infused with the breath of life by the same almighty Creator. So to all Americans in every city, near and far, small and large, from mountain to mountain, from ocean to ocean, hear these words: you will never be ignored again. Your voice, your hopes, and your dreams will define
All right, here we go. Real quick, I want to, before we go here, run out of time, because there's some more stuff. It says here that the federal government closed an investigation into Jeremy Hutchinson in 2015, citing insufficient evidence regarding bribery allegations in legislation. Well, that was in 2015. That was well before. He's being investigated right now for bribery. I mean, I know we've got these other charges, but, I mean, there's an ongoing investigation into Preferred Family Health Care out of Missouri where he's, it's a different case, but just saying. Listen to this. This is fascinating to me. On June 19th, 2012, Hutchinson emailed his girlfriend, quote, "Did you tell them how much I had given you? Did you tell them I've spent $300,000 on you? I'm sure they'd love that. Did you tell them you have 2 computers, 2 kayaks, 2 iPads, 2 phones?" In mid-2013, the FBI, according to Lisa Hammersley in the U.S. Attorney's Office, formally opened an investigation on Hutchinson based in part on the material found on the various devices the senator's former girlfriend provided. At about that same time, FBI Special Agent Mike Lowe asked Hutchinson, who is an attorney and former deputy county prosecutor, if he would voluntarily meet. Hutchinson admitted in that interview on June 11, 2014, that he, quote, did not keep proper records or receipts. He could not explain why he transferred money out of his campaign account into his personal account and then spent the money on personal items. That he allowed Individual 1 to purchase a cruise from his campaign account, but later claimed he meant for Individual 1 to use his personal money for the trip. Hutchinson went on to say he screwed up. I've screwed up a bunch. I have exposure. And then Hutchinson, after the interview, volunteered to become an informant for the FBI from 2014. Summer of 2014 to the summer of 2016, and hashtag worst informant ever. That's actually not in the filing by the prosecution, but it would be really funny if it was. Folks, that's all the time we have for today. This broadcast of the program will be up at conduitnews.com. Go to YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube page. Go to patreon.com/CNR. $5 a month, get an extra video. Arkansas, be safe.
The folks down in Little Rock call progress.